Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome tonight's co-hosts, Cindy Levy and Olivia Wilde.
Welcome, everyone, to the 25th Annual Courage and Journalism Awards. As a woman and as a journalist, I can tell you that tonight is a night that always recharges my batteries. I leave feeling grateful that in this country, my fellow editors, reporters, and writers are able to do their jobs peacefully and in safety. And I also leave inspired by the example of women who meet much greater obstacles all around the world and come out swinging. Tonight marks 25 years of honoring those crusaders. These awards began back in 1990 with a dinner ceremony at the National Museum for Women in the Arts. With Katharine Graham delivering the keynote, our inaugural awardees were Maria Jimena Duzan, threatened for her articles about drug trafficking in Colombia; Romanian Florica Ichim, who opposed communism through journalism; Carol Murphy, an American who bravely reported from Kuwait during the invasion and liberation; and Liliane Pierre-Paul, a radio correspondent from Haiti who was arrested and exiled for her views on the government.
Since then, more than 100 women who made the choice to bear witness to history and face public criticism, threats, and violence have received Courage and Lifetime Achievement Awards. Some of these remarkable women have worked in war zones. They include Gordana Nizavic, who covered the siege of Sarajevo from the ruins of her newspaper's office; Marie Colvin, who covered wars from Chechnya to Syria, where, sadly, she was killed in 2012; and Elizabeth Neufer, killed in Iraq in 2003, whose reporting on the Bosnia War led to the arrest and prosecution of war criminals. We launched an IWMF Fellowship in Human Rights and Social Justice reporting in her name, and this year is the 10th anniversary of the fellowship. Other awardees expose government incompetence and criminality. Sirkal Mfasil gave birth to her son in an Ethiopian prison cell, where she was being held for her critical reports on the government. And Lyubov Kovalevskaya exposed secret documents revealing safety concerns at Chernobyl more than a month before the nuclear accident there in 1986. Others revealed threats to society, including Sharika Aklas, who lived through the rise of the Taliban in Afghanistan, and Jineth Bedoya Lima, who was kidnapped twice while covering drug trafficking. We are honored to have with us today the IWMF's 2008 Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Edie Lederer, who has worked on 6 continents during more than 4 decades with the Associated Press. Edie has covered wars, famines, and political upheavals, and we are so happy to have her here with us tonight. And the list of women who pushed past boundaries and made a difference goes on and on. These women, and those we are honoring here tonight, are divided by continents, decades, and experiences, but they are united by courage. Each one has stood for the truth, for openness and justice in places where people suffer for lack of both.
In celebrating a quarter century of courage, we must not only say thank you to our founders, we are also profoundly grateful to all of our sponsors, who believe, as we do, that the courageous female journalists we support here tonight are creating a better future for all of us, all around the world. To Bank of America for 9 years as our national presenting sponsor, thank you. Thank you, Chevron, our West Coast presenting sponsor and our partner in bringing you these awards for the 3rd year in a row in Los Angeles. Thank you, Willow Bay and Sharon Waxman, for being our dinner committee co-chairs, and to all of our committee members who are here with us tonight. Thank you, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, and the IWMF's very own Ted Boutros. Thank you, Catton, Muchin, Rosenman, for your years of loyal support, and thank you, Helen Bing, and new sponsor, Badat & Company. Thanks most of all, I want to say to all of you here tonight for your time and support. The organization would not have made it this far in its vital work without every one of you. I would also be remiss in not remembering Ben Bradley, the crusading journalist and longtime Washington Post editor, who passed away, as you know, last week. He loved being a journalist, and he showed an entire generation how to be brave. Now, for a very special tribute to another brave crusader, please join me in welcoming journalist, writer, and host of CNN's This Is Life, Lisa Ling. Hi, Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. Today, the world of journalism is facing its greatest challenges. Press credentials have gone from being a measure of protection to a target. Many of us in this room have been personally touched by the violence committed against those who seek to bring us the truth. This year, we have again been reminded how perilous the global landscape is for journalists. In April, 2 previous Courage awardees, both journalists for the Associated Press, were shot by a rogue policeman in Afghanistan on their way to cover the presidential elections there. 2002 honoree Kathy Gannon survived. 2005 honoree Anya Neiringhaus did not. Please join me in watching this video about Anya's life.
I could have stayed out of trouble most of my life, but always have been drawn to the people, no matter where, who suffer in difficult situations. I do my job simply to report people's courage with my camera and with my heart.
Throughout her long career, Anya Neiringhaus focused her lens on those in conflict. Her award-winning photographs brought home the horrors of war, while highlighting the dignity and humanity of its victims.
Many years ago, I asked Anya to show me her favorite picture. It was a very Anya kind of picture. She showed calm while all around was chaos. She found the quiet, human moments that connected people in great strife to all the rest of us.
After working for the European Press Photo Agency for nearly a decade, Anya joined the Associated Press as a staff photographer in 2002. Over the next 12 years, her assignments took her throughout the Middle East.
Even when, all hell was breaking loose, she could keep a calm head and do her job to the very best of her ability, which was quite considerable.
For her bravery and her remarkable photographs in Iraq, Anya was part of an AP team that earned a Pulitzer Prize in 2005. The same year, Anya was also honored by the International Women's Media Foundation with the Courage in Journalism Award.
I'm not here today to tell you about my difficulties covering conflicts. The real difficulties and the real courage belong to those who are subjected against their will to conflicts.
In 2009, Anya teamed up with veteran AP journalist Kathy Gannon. Together, they volunteered for risky assignments, becoming the first foreign journalists to embed with the Afghan National Army and the Pakistan Army.
When you look at her work, you see that people typically are at ease in her photographs, which is, I believe, a direct reflection of her marvelous ability to gain people's trust and to relate to them as a human being.
When she wasn't on assignment, Anya sought the comfort and safety of her family's farm in Germany, but she always returned to the field. In the spring of 2014, Anya and Kathy were back in Kabul to cover the Afghan presidential election. A friend expressed concern for Anya's safety amidst the escalating violence. But she told him, "This is what I meant to do. I'm happy to go."
A police commander opened fire on a car carrying Associated Press journalists, killing photographer Anya Neiringhaus and wounding reporter Kathy Gannon.
The irony, of course, is that Kathy and Anya were covering the distribution of ballots for Afghanistan's presidential election. By any measure, a hopeful sign of empowerment for the Afghan people. That hope was why Kathy and Anya wanted to be there, to bear witness to the good after so many years of covering strife and conflict. Many who have written and talked about Anya in this last sad week mention her great laugh and her great joy for life. She may have been the only happy journalist in the world.
Anya was an incredibly brave and professional and warm and caring and empathetic character. Remembering everything that she brought to the profession gives great strength to many of us. And I think that will be her lasting legacy.
Thank you, Lisa. I had the honor of hearing Kathy Gannon, who was with Anya when she was killed, speak last week in New York, and the image that she described that will stay with me is that, you know, they were joking around in the back of the car, as you saw, and then suddenly, because of the blast, their shoulders were pushed together very tightly, and she said that she will continue to feel Anya's shoulder against hers as she goes forward with her work. Anya was an incredible person and a journalist like no other. She will be missed by all, but more importantly, she will be remembered. To tell you exactly how and to highlight an incredible show of support for the IWMF, it is my pleasure to introduce Ted Boutros, Courage Chair, longtime board member, and First Amendment lawyer extraordinaire. Ted.
Thank you so much, Cindy. This has been a year filled with extreme danger and enormous bravery for journalists around the world. For example, in addition to the tragedy that killed Anya and injured Kathy, we have seen freelance reporters James Foley and Stephen Sotloff beheaded in Syria by ISIS. New York Times reporter Alyssa Rubin broke her skull and several bones in a helicopter crash covering ISIS's reign of terror in Iraq, and then wrote about it from her hospital bed about 3 days later. When I see what these and so many journalists do to report the truth, including the amazing honorees that we'll hear from tonight, and what they confront in seeking to report the news, it makes me especially proud and extremely humble to be on the board of this organization. And I am thrilled, truly thrilled, to announce a transformational gift from the Howard G. Buffett Foundation that will make it possible for IWMF to support women journalists for the next decade. First, in honor of Anya's life and work, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation has provided $1 million to fund the new Anya Neiringhaus Courage in Photojournalism Award. The award will be given every year to a woman photojournalist who follows in Anya's footsteps. You can already go to the IWMF website and put in your nominations, and the first award will be given in June in Berlin, Germany, Anya's home country. On top of that, Mr. Buffett also has made it possible for us to create the Howard G. Buffett Fund for Women Journalists, a $4 million fund to further support the aspirations of women journalists around the world. Isn't that incredible? And what I found particularly compelling about this is the touching backstory that led to these contributions. Howard Buffett is a longtime IWMF supporter, and he himself is a photographer, and he attended the Courage Awards here in Los Angeles in 2005 and became an admirer of Anya's work and was struck by her work and the images she captured and what she was saying to the world with her photographs. At the suggestion of Elisa Munoz, IWMF's executive director, Anya contacted Howard to seek his support for her Nieman Fellowship at Harvard, and he agreed to support her, and they met several times over the years, kept in touch. She even taught Howard how to make a fake UN press credential, something that Howard and all of us could probably always use at some point. But when Howard heard the news, I've really never seen anything like this. When he heard the news of Anya's death, he immediately, the same day, called Elisa and said he wanted to make this gift in Anya's honor. And it is just truly so meaningful for the organization and so fitting in light of Anya's life and work. A free and aggressive press is vital to ensuring the freedom and self-determination of individuals. Anya said that herself. And to serve as a check on governmental power and governmental abuse. As the US Supreme Court once said in one of my favorite First Amendment cases, it is difficult for people to accept what they are prohibited from observing. And journalists like Anya are the eyes and ears who do the observing for all of us. Thanks so much to Howard Buffett and his extraordinary generosity, the IWMF will be able to fulfill its mission of protecting and supporting women journalists around the world as they do their indispensable work. Thank you again, Howard, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you to Howard Buffett for such a transformational gift for this organization. Now, while we have incredible support from so many people and so many organizations, our needs often do outweigh our resources. And last year, in this room, you helped us to establish an emergency fund for women journalists. Thanks to you, on that night, we collected almost $70,000 for that fund. We have already put that emergency fund to use, and I'm so pleased to say that a Nigerian woman journalist who was receiving constant death threats after reporting on human trafficking just arrived in the United States yesterday as a result of your donations from last year. And that she will receive treatment for trauma from a specialist facility in Arizona.
If you're interested in donating to that fund, once again, please flag down one of our helpers who will be walking around during the dinner break with iPads taking credit card donations securely.
Please welcome actress Kate Hudson.
Our first Courage Award recipient tonight is Solange Lusiku Nsimire. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is one of the most volatile countries in Africa. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, those who dare to report and expose crimes against humanity, sexual violence, or rigged elections are subject to routine threats and attacks. They become victims of corrupt judicial proceedings and arbitrary arrest, including lengthy detentions. Government officials publicly criticize journalists and accuse them of criminal defamation, insulting the head of state or the government, or spreading false information, all of which are against the law in the DRC. As a result, fear and self-censorship abound. But this landscape of threats and attacks does not deter Solange from her work as the editor-in-chief and publisher of independent newspaper Le Souverain. For challenging local and national powers, revealing corruption and abuse, and giving voice to the often marginalized peoples of South Kivu, Solange has been forced into hiding twice, including early last year when she fled from her town for a few months with her 2-year-old child. She's received death threats, warned that journalists are, quote, killed like animals, and her family home has been repeatedly attacked. In one instance, her husband and children were tied up while armed men searched her home. But she remains determined to bear witness. I'm really happy and satisfied when I publish, Solange said in a speech last fall. I continue this commitment in the press. I am here to denounce and demand like a sentinel watches. Please watch the video.
Solange Lusiku Nsimire has been a journalist in the Democratic Republic of Congo for almost 20 years. She is the editor-in-chief and publisher of the independent newspaper Le Souverain, which is distributed in her hometown in Bukavu, one of the most troubled and volatile regions in the Congo. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, Bukavu is also one of the most violent regions for journalists to work in. Since 2006, 8 journalists have been killed in the Congo. 3 of them in the region where Nsimire lives and reports in. Le Souverain is a small but powerful publication and is the only media outlet in the area. Since taking over as editor-in-chief, Nsimire has devoted the paper to the promotion of democracy, with stories exposing the presence of guns on university campuses, Rwanda's role in destabilizing Eastern Congo, highlighting disenfranchised voices, and holding local and national politicians accountable.
We have a lot of enemies, but we tell ourselves that from the moment you hate us because we are straight in our position, because we professionally analyze what we need to analyze. So you're free to hate us, you do not have to love us, and again, we're not here to be loved by everyone.
However, her fearless and staunch reporting has come at a cost. She has faced numerous death threats and has had to live underground and leave her hometown for her own safety. She and her family have been physically attacked by armed men, and her home has been vandalized.
When I'm threatened, that is the time that I say, yes, I myself chose this profession because I love it. It gives me happiness. But my children did not choose it. My husband did not choose that. Because of my job, they also live under a lot of stress, as often is the case.
Always fearless and never backing down, Nsimire also uses her writing and reporting on one of the most volatile issues in the Congo, women's equality.
Women's rights are abused in Congo because there's no democracy. If there was democracy, the numerical majority of women would lead to the will of women being respected all the way to the summit. But as there is no democracy, there is no respect for women's rights.
Nsimire began her career as a journalist when she was 17 years old at a local radio station in the Congo. Her ferocious reporting has landed her many accolades and awards, but she shows no signs of slowing down or resting.
Journalism is a noble profession. I love journalism. I inform others, and others are happy to have information. That's it. When you do that, even if you've not eaten, even if they insult you after a while, you say to yourself, I chose a good trade.
J'ai choisi un bon métier.
Je suis heureuse d'être ici aujourd'hui et de recevoir ce prestigieux prix, ce prestigieux prix de la part de la Fondation internationale des femmes dans les médias. Tel que vous me voyez, je suis devenue journaliste par hasard, parce que je n'avais jamais prévu d'être journaliste un jour et de poursuivre cette carrière. C'est venu d'une révolte durant mon enfance, face aux injustices et à la corruption, et je suis donc moi-même témoin des faits qui se passent dans mon pays. Après toutes ces années de travail, une chose est vraie pour moi aujourd'hui, le journalisme est ma vocation et sera mon cheval de bataille dans la promotion de la démocratie et des droits des femmes. C'est un combat que mes collègues et moi-même, nous nous efforçons de faire grâce à notre journal, Le Souverain. Les genres de reportages que nous publions dans Les Souverains reflètent les aspirations du peuple congolais. Nous lui assurons son droit à une information fiable et crédible. Nous exploitons un large éventail de rubriques politiques, socio-économiques, histoire ainsi que des événements culturels qui reflètent la diversité de tous nos citoyens en République démocratique du Congo. Notre journal contribue à la lutte contre la rumeur et la désinformation qui sont fort répandues en République démocratique du Congo. Étant donc une entreprise de presse qui œuvre pour la promotion de la démocratie et des droits de la femme, au journal Le Souverain, nous travaillons très dur pour faire découvrir au public les images positives des femmes. Les femmes congolaises sont des femmes braves. Elles assurent la survie de leur famille malgré les viols et les violences dont elles sont victimes. Nous rejetons l'idée que nos femmes sont condamnées à la misère. Nous disons non au misérabilisme de la femme congolaise et nous vous demandons de considérer les femmes congolaises comme des femmes braves, des femmes qui méritent d'être reconnues comme des femmes déterminées. Nous refusons que l'humanité nous regarde et regarde les femmes congolaises à travers le prisme du viol et de la victimisation. Nous voulons mettre en évidence les femmes congolaises, non seulement dans leur tragique souffrance, mais aussi dans leur détermination à innover, à apporter des changements positifs, à apporter leur valeur ajoutée dans la vie de toute une communauté. Elles sont héroïnes, les femmes congolaises. Il y a une peur généralisée aujourd'hui de dénoncer les abus qui sont commis par certaines autorités dans le pays. Ainsi donc, beaucoup de gens tombent dans la censure et l'autocensure, surtout dans les médias. La censure et l'autocensure n'ont pas de place dans le journal Les Souverains. Moi, je suis fière d'être une journaliste libre et indépendante dans mes pensées, dans mon travail d'analyse, ainsi que dans mes opinions. Je publie des nouvelles dans le strict respect de l'indépendance éditoriale du journal, ainsi que dans la dignité, le respect de la dignité humaine, même si cette approche m'attire souvent des menaces et des problèmes. Je suppose que j'assume et je supporte les menaces qui ont été faites contre moi, mais en honneur aux personnes qui ont besoin d'avoir des informations fiables sur ce qui se passe dans mon pays, c'est mon espoir que les générations futures utiliseront également ces informations que nous écrivons aujourd'hui. Ainsi, à notre façon, nous contribuons aussi à la construction de la mémoire collective du Sud Kivu et du Grand Congo dans son intégralité. Je crois que c'est très important et c'est le travail de toute une vie, de ma vie à moi. C'est pourquoi aujourd'hui, je n'ai pas vraiment besoin ou je ne mérite pas des applaudissements pour ce courage que vous me reconnaissez aujourd'hui. Mais mon grand honneur en recevant ces prix, c'est que je vous demande non seulement d'examiner et d'observer avec compassion la souffrance des femmes congolaises. Ces femmes congolaises et ces hommes congolais dont le nombre de morts aujourd'hui se compte à près de 8 millions. Les dirigeants congolais de mon pays, ils ont du mal à lever le ton pour dire halte à la souffrance que vit l'homme congolais. Aujourd'hui, moi, Solange, jouissant de toute ma liberté d'opinion, ma liberté de presse et ma liberté d'expression, je me joins à la voix et à la volonté de tous les peuples congolais pour dire non à la révision de la Constitution au Congo. Je le ferai, je l'ai fait, et voilà ce que je suis. Je vous remercie.
Please welcome creator and writer of HBO's The Newsroom, Aaron Sorkin.
Good evening, thank you. The difference between writing about reporters and being one is roughly the same as the difference between drawing a building and building a building. And no one illustrates that better than Arwa Damon. As CNN's senior international correspondent, Arwa Damon is never out of harm's way. Tonight she's recognized as our Next Courage Award winner. Arwa recently reported from Egypt, where the new military-backed government has issued a state of emergency, which has been used as a pretext for intimidating journalists. In December 2013, Egyptian authorities arrested 3 foreign journalists for working for Al Jazeera, and they later received 7- and 10-year jail sentences. During the height of the siege of Homs, Syria, Arwa snuck into the city from Lebanon and reported on an underground network of doctors who set up makeshift field clinics to treat those wounded in the government attacks on protesters. She's made many trips since, covering chemical weapons facilities and the activities of Islamic separatist group ISIS. She played a pivotal role in reporting on the 2012 attacks on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. One of the few journalists on the scene after the attacks, it was Arwa who discovered the journal of Ambassador Chris Stevens, killed in that attack. She reported through a rain of bullets in Bahrain, covered protests in Thailand, and witnessed the contentious elections in the Philippines. All that, and she's reported for years from Iraq. Take a look at this video.
There is more of a risk today to journalists than there has been in the past. We've become direct targets. There's prices on our heads. But just because that risk exists does not mean that we stop trying to adapt to it.
Arwa Damon has spent much of the last decade in a flak jacket and a helmet. As CNN's senior international correspondent, she reports on the world's deadliest spots: Iraq, Libya, Syria, countries many journalists try to avoid.
I think I've ended up as being something of the accidental war correspondent. I didn't set out to have that be a focal point of my career. I most certainly am not an adrenaline junkie, but what really keeps me going out there every single day is those human stories.
Her own story began in Boston, Massachusetts. Damon was born to an American father and a Syrian mother. Her childhood was spent in places like Turkey and Morocco. After graduating from college in New York, she was trying out different jobs. Then 9/11 happened, and she found her calling.
The United States was gearing up for war in Iraq, and being an Arab American, I grew up deeply entrenched in both cultures and felt a desire, a need to try to go out there and, because of my own personal life experiences, try to build cross-cultural bridges of understanding and compassion.
Though she had no journalism experience, she set off for Baghdad. She quickly found her footing as a freelancer. Then in 2006, CNN hired her and her career took off.
Check for IEDs.
Since then, Damon has crisscrossed the Middle East, covering every major event, from the Iraq War to the Arab Spring. Her reporting has shined a light on what's happening on the ground in these complicated conflict zones. Like the Syrian families hiding in bunkers for weeks trying to survive the government's campaign of shelling.
What is the world waiting for? For us to die of hunger and fear?
And the U.S. airstrike in Iraq that killed 17 people, mostly women and children.
When it comes to the Middle East, the problems there are so multifaceted and so difficult to understand that a lot of times there's a sense that it's too overwhelming to be able to cover. And it's not, because every single issue that is transpiring can be simplified to the story of a single individual.
But telling these stories often puts Damon in harm's way. She's been shot at dozens of times, narrowly escaped incoming mortars and tear gas, and survived the ever-present threat of kidnapping. And though she takes certain risks, like sneaking into Syria in 2012 to report on the brave doctors treating protesters in underground clinics, Damon does it for a greater purpose.
I don't believe that any one story is necessarily worth dying for, but if we look back at the body of work that exists because people are willing to keep going out to these front lines and taking the risk to tell those stories, if we look at how in the past those risks have helped individuals or demanded accountability, then that body of work and the changes that we have managed to bring about are worth dying for. Of course, I'm impacted by the violence, and you do lose a part of yourself when you're out there that you won't ever get back. But when you're faced with the losses that the people whose stories you're covering, what they've gone through, it makes that part of yourself that you have to give up to tell their stories absolutely worth it.
Please welcome Arwa Damon.
Thank you. What a response. I wasn't really expecting that. First of all, thank you, of course, to the International Women's Media Foundation. My sincerest and deepest gratitude for recognizing my work, having my name alongside female icons of the industry, and today alongside my two co-awardees who frankly display a level of courage and bravery that is not required of me. I choose to confront these dangers. They have to live with it every single day. You know, over a decade ago, CNN took a chance on a 20-something-year-old young punk with a nose ring and a big attitude and very, very little experience. And I rarely struggle to try to express myself, and yet I find myself in that position. There are a million thoughts and memories going through my head, like a Rolodex of the last decade plus, the incredible people that the industry has sacrificed in pursuit of the truth, and those individuals, those ordinary people that I meet out in the field every day, from the mother who is stumbling across the border, having walked for over a week, carrying her severely dehydrated baby because she was trying to flee from ISIS, to the young doctor in the field clinic in Damascus who was willing to risk his life more than he already is to try to take me into the areas where he's treating wounded civilians because he felt that it was that important that the story get out and that the world see what the Assad regime is doing, to the young 5-year-old Iraqi boy, for reasons that no one knows to this day, was standing in front of his house playing and was doused in gasoline and set on fire. And when I think about courage, those are the people that I think about. I don't necessarily think that I'm particularly brave, and if anything, as you heard me say there, I am the accidental war zone correspondent. But I was in New York when 9/11 happened, and I was watching the anger growing amongst Americans towards Muslims and Arabs and the Middle East, and as it grew apparent that the U.S. was going to war in Iraq, I felt as if my two cultures were colliding. And in a naive and idealistic kind of way, having been brought up entrenched both in Arab and American cultures, I felt something of an inexplicable need to go and do something about it. I mean, I look like the typical American girl next door, and yet, knowing being Arab, I couldn't shake this notion that I could be used as being something of a cross-cultural bridge. And so, with that desire to want to generate compassion and understanding, I made my way to Iraq. And looking around the world today, there is more hatred, more radicalism, and less understanding. But like my co-awardees who refuse to give up or be driven away from the stories they're trying to tell or silenced by the threat that they receive, we cannot give up, even though at times we do feel like we're reporting into a dark vortex. Because every once in a while, you do have that moment, like the moment, and I go back again to the story of this 5-year-old boy who was doused in gasoline. But there was that moment when, through his story, we were able to also speak about the sectarian hatreds in Iraq. But perhaps more importantly, that moment when I was able to call his parents because of the amazing response that our report got from our viewers around the world, and tell them, your boy is going to get help. He's coming to America. He's actually here in Los Angeles. But I remember thinking to myself that day, if I do nothing else in my career but having gotten this little kid help, then for me, that's absolutely worth it. I may have started out driven by a passion and a desire to create understanding, but I think a lot of us keep going because having seen what we've seen and knowing what we know, we would not be able to live with ourselves if we gave up or if we stopped. And there are countless stories of sorrow, and it is overwhelming and it is suffocating. And when you see others' pain, watching as they're trying to cope with this tirade of emotions, you do at times truly feel utterly helpless. And then you're plagued by the constant self-questioning. Could we have told the story better? Could we have made it more powerful, more impactful, done something more to generate the kind of reaction that these various tragedies do need and deserve? And I think we as an industry are especially asking that, those of us who are covering the Middle East when it comes to Syria. War zone reporting can at times tend to have an aura of glamour about it, but there's nothing glamorous about death or killing or just about anything that any of us are confronting out in the field in those sorts of situations. And I, for one, quickly lost my naivete, but I've sort of held on to my idealism, although that might be going to. It is a fight every day, and it is frustrating, and it is angering, and people often ask us how we find the strength to continue when our colleagues are killed, or when so many of those we meet throughout the course of our reporting are killed. And much of the times it's due to violence that defies logic. But it's not about finding the courage or the strength to keep going. It's about knowing that they, all of us, we stand for something, or at least we try to. So thank you again, and please allow me to dedicate this award to everyone in the industry and those beyond it who have sacrificed and will continue to sacrifice their lives and their basic rights in their respective countries for freedom. Thank you.
Please welcome actress Rashida Jones.
Our final Courage Award recipient tonight is Brankica Stankovic. Serbia is a fragile democracy. It struggles under rampant political corruption, organized crime, and social ills. During the regime of Slobodan Milosevic, journalists were murdered openly and with impunity. In spite of political shifts since then, reporters who question authorities or cover taboo topics still face substantial risks. Self-censorship is rampant. according to Freedom House, Serbian media operate in a highly politicized environment, and journalists continue to face physical and verbal attacks and are targeted with attempts on their lives and public threats. Some journalists have been arrested. In 2012, one reporter had an explosive device planted in her yard. Several others have had Molotov cocktails thrown at their family homes. Journalists are threatened legally by the government, and the source and destination of their electronic communications are recorded and stored. It is under these pressures, as well as ongoing direct threats, assassination attempts, and slander, that Brankica Stankovic does her work as an investigative journalist for RTV B92, one of the few independent broadcasters in Serbia. In her words, the only limits are those you impose on yourself. Watch the video with me.
Brankica Stankovic has been a journalist in Serbia for almost 20 years. She is the editor-in-chief of Insider, an investigative television series, the only one of its kind in Serbia. Stankovic has used the series as a tool for investigating everything from war crimes to institutional corruption to state-condoned criminality. She investigated the whereabouts of Ratko Mladic, the commander in charge of the Bosnian massacre at Srebrenica and a wanted war criminal, and the assassination of Zoran Đinđić, the first democratically elected Serbian prime minister, whose death rocked the new nation, much as the murder of JFK did in the United States. She has exposed Serbia's corrupt judiciary and secret transfers of state money to the offshore banking haven of Cyprus.
Svaki novinar koji želi da dođe do informacija može da dođe do informacija. Svaki novinar koji želi da se bavi ovakvim temama isto tako može uspešno se baviti takvim temama. Pitanje je samo da li to neko hoće ili neće da radi. Mi smo odlučili da to hoćemo da radimo i zato smo sve to.
Her fearless muckraking has come at a cost. She is dogged by death threats from those she's investigated. In 2009, she produced this documentary titled Impotent State, an expose on a violent nationalist sports club whose members had escaped prosecution for drug trafficking and murder charges because of their close ties to politicians. The club retaliated at a nationally televised football game where an angry crowd kicked and pummeled a blow-up doll meant to represent Stankovic. They chanted, "Brankica, you whore," and made veiled threats on her life, finally stabbing the doll. Within days, the Serbian State Security Service insisted Stankovic have 24/7 police protection. Since then, she can go nowhere without her 4 bodyguards, not even, she says, to throw out the trash. But despite the police detail, the threats keep coming. In 2011, after an insider report exposed the misuse of public funds by a state-owned mining company, obituaries for Stankovic and her colleagues were plastered on walls and kiosks near Belgrade. In her autobiography, Insider, My Story, published last year in Serbia, Stankovic reported that at one point her enemies hired a hitman. He was eventually arrested, living in Stankovic's apartment building, in the unit just above her. While the threats have multiplied with every expose, Stankovic remains determined to expose corruption and to speak truth to power.
Bez obzira na sve to, kad negde podvučem crtu, ja bih opet radila potpuno isto, jer smatram da je to jedino to posao novinara, da radi u interesu javnosti.
Stankovic began her career in journalism in 1996 at RTV Studio B and then moved to Radio B92. In 2004, she started The Insider. She has completed courses from the BBC and IREX and has won many prestigious journalism awards in Serbia. She was selected as one of the 100 international information heroes by Reporters Sans Frontières.
Ograničena sloboda kretanja i život kao u zatvoru, velika cena koju plaćam, ali prosto se ne kajem. Dakle, niti kukam zbog toga, zato što je to negde bio naš izbor.
Please join me in welcoming Brankica Stankovic.
Thank you. Good evening to all of you. I'm really honored to be here with you tonight and to be one of the few women journalists from around this world who has been selected to receive this important award. It's always difficult to attract attention to what you are doing, especially when you come from a country like mine, which has the same population as twice the size of Los Angeles. Still, my work has attracted your attention. In the last 10 years, I have received more than 15 local and international awards for investigative journalism, but this worldwide award is proof that when you do your job properly and professionally, borders are not important, and it doesn't matter where you are on the globe, where you live and work. What matters is that quality is recognized. Our motto has always been that journalists work for the public, and there can be no compromise when it comes to truth and public interest. For that reason, Insider has had the same slogan for 10 years. They are forbidden questions, answers that should not be heard, lines not to be crossed. This is where Insider starts. I think that is a very important message to all journalists in the world, because in every country there is always someone who will try to prevent the truth being revealed. This award is for journalist courage, but still I don't consider myself a brave woman. My friends often ask me how it can be possible that I'm afraid of insects, but not afraid of revealing information about powerful people from the world of business, politics, and mafia. I think it is a matter of deciding either to do your job in best possible way or not do it at all. However, there have been moments when I have sat at home alone and wondered why I needed all this. On Christmas Eve, at dinner, I had to lie to my father, saying that I needed to go away for a rest. The truth was that I had to leave town for a while, as the police assessment was that I was no longer safe in the city where I live in Belgrade. I read the official police records about who wanted to kill me and how. My life, because of everything that happened to me, has become something like an action-packed thriller, but I alone choose that way and I will not give up. Anyway, there have been so many difficult and stressful moments in the past 5 years since I have police protection, and just because I did my job to do best of my ability, some precious moments of my life have been taken from me. For example, just after my daughter was born, I could not carry her in my arms when I was leaving hospital because of the security assessment. I had to let someone else take, Still, I hope that next time I come to the USA, I will come as a free woman without police protection and with my daughter Sarah. The only thing that we will be interested is visiting Disneyland. Until then, I will continue working just as I'm doing now and show other journalists by my own example that there are no forbidden topics and no limits when you want to do something. The fact that I know that all of you sitting here tonight support me will mean a lot in my future work. This award is obligation and encouragement to do my job even better in the future. Thank you very much.
I think after hearing from these winners that you'll agree that our Courage Award recipients tonight are truly exceptional. And they are, believe me, representative of thousands of women journalists around the world who work to inform us all amidst the gravest of risks. So you've seen those risks on the screen. Now, for an extraordinary recognition of that work, please welcome tonight's dinner committee chairs, Sharon Waxman and Willow Bay.
thank you. We'd like to take a few minutes tonight to honor all the journalists who put their safety on the line, especially those who devoted and ultimately lost their lives to covering stories in places ravaged by conflict, by turmoil, by corruption. We are profoundly grateful to them for giving voice to so many.
With us tonight to put music to the poignant images captured by Anya Neiringhaus, who we recognized earlier this evening, is the talented mezzo-soprano Carly Paoli, accompanied on piano by Robert Emery.
We won't cry because it's over. We will smile because you happened. Through your eyes we saw a world we never knew. Though this life will bring us sadness, it's the promise of tomorrow that forever shall be there because of you. Because of you, we are an open field of open doors and fences. A sunrise as it reaches for the sky. Because of you, we know a world out there without the false pretenses. Because of you, we have these wings for us to fly. As we watch the world around us, in every frame you will be there. You will be the wind that dances in the night. All these tears for you we're crying, not from sadness but from joy. Because of you, I know that we will be alright. Because of you, we are an open field of open doors and fences. A sunrise as it reaches for the sky. Because of you, we know a world out there without the false pretenses. Because of you, we have these wings for us to fly. I just know I'll be alright because of you.
Thank you for that beautiful performance, Carly. And I want to encourage everybody once more to take the opportunity here in this room tonight to contribute to the IWMF Emergency Fund for Women Journalists and to support the kind of incredible women that we've met here tonight. If you make a gift to that fund, I guarantee its effects will last year-round. These journalists, in the words of Courage winner Kadila Ismailova, dare because they believe in the right of others to know the truth. We may be far away from those who fight for these rights on our behalf, but the Emergency Fund really does allow us to reach out when these women need it most, and believe me, they do appreciate it. So please find one of our helpers with an iPad. Are there helpers in the room? Helpers? Okay, yes. They're around you, they're back there. Please find them with an iPad either right now or on your way out. And to those who have already generously given, thank you so much.
And before we close, we have an exciting announcement. In our introduction, we told you about the recent expansion of the IWMF's work. We are pleased to tell you about a new program focusing on enhancing journalists' personal security. With the support of the amazing Buffett Foundation, in December, we will be launching Reporta. Reporta is a mobile app that enables journalists to report when they are in danger, to establish check-in protocols and raise the flag when these are missed, and will facilitate the reporting of abuse, threats, and attacks. Reporta will be launched in English, French, and Spanish, and we're working on an Arabic version. Please visit IWMF.org in December and download the app.
Thanks to all of you in this room for your generous contributions, and most of all, for being with us here tonight to celebrate IWMF's 25th anniversary of the Courage in Journalism Awards. We look forward to seeing you here next year.
Thank you.